What is this? Season 2? What is Season 2? Well, I guess Season 1's over, so I might as well put in Season 2. Where's that VHS player?
This is Late Night Madness!
Well, that was garbage, wasn't it? Stupid. More of that vaudeville stuff at night. This was kind of entertaining. Wasn't my favorite, but I guess it was something. Alright.
Welcome to Vaudeville Tales at Night. Today I have a story for you, full of intrigue and wonder. I will warn you, this might frighten you and your children. Let's go.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Connor. Connor had dreams of being a star. But like anything worth doing, it requires a little bit of that cha-ching, those dollar bills. Connor had to take a job to make some money, to make his dreams of being an actor come true. There wasn't a lot of work in his small town he grew up in. In this small town, the only job you truly could ever find would be working in a mine. Mines were not a good spot for a beautiful boy like Connor, though. Anything could happen in a mine. On his first day of work at his new job, he was sent in with one other man, a beautiful man named Hudson. Hudson had been working at the mine for over 2 weeks. These 2 men were being sent down into the dark, dusty coal mine to start their first job. When they got down there, Connor said to Hudson, "I have dreams of being an actor. I don't always want to work in a coal mine." That is when Hudson confided in Connor that he had dreams of stardom. He played music in a jazz band on the weekends. No one in the coal mine knew about this, though. The boys would have to keep their secrets, as to avoid ridicule from the other miners. The other miners were very, very gruff and didn't enjoy the arts. Every day, Connor and Hudson would go down to the mine and talk about their dreams of flying high and getting out of the coal mine. Little did they know they were being pulled deeper, deeper into the darkness, both metaphorically and physically. Every day, Connor would go home and think about his dreams of being an actor, but now he started having dreams involving his new friend Hudson. Then that's when Connor started to notice he was starting to have more feelings for Hudson, feelings he had never had before. He was very excited to move forward with this new friendship and maybe find more in the deep coal mines. The next day, when he went down to his shift at the coal mines, Connor saw his friend Hudson. Little did Connor know, Hudson had been faced with the mine mania. When men are in coal mines too long, sometimes they just go mad. That could be said about any job. But this was the mine. Connor said to Hudson, I was thinking about our show, and I was thinking about the life we could start building together. I'm really enjoying our friendship. And that's when Hudson said to him, I would enjoy murdering you in these coal mines, Connor. And that is when Hudson started to chase him through the coal mines. What are you doing? The mine mania has set in. You mustn't do this. This isn't you, Hudson. This is not you. Connor shrieked and shrieked, but there was no one to hear him in that dark coal mine. People don't know this, but coal mines are not a safe place to play. They are very dangerous, and if you think it's safe for you to play in a coal mine, well, you are very, very mistaken. One last thing was heard coming from the coal mine. It was a song being sung by Hudson. He said Connor wanted to fly. Too bad he had to die. Connor wanted to fly. Too bad he had to die. The moral of the story, if you want to fly with the stars, you can't find yourself in a coal mine. It's too dark down there. There isn't anywhere for you to perform your songs. Isn't that right, Connor?
Well, I think we all learned the moral of that story now, didn't we? Anything can happen with vaudeville tales at night.
Stupid tape. Here. Grandma's wake. Not today. Oh. Lost tape of L&M. This tape's all yellow too. I hope someone dies at the end. In the winter of 2012, a group of 4 friends started a restaurant. The restaurant seen in this photo is not the actual restaurant. The real restaurant burned down. This is a stock photo. The group of 4 friends wanted to start a monster cafe. They would dress as monsters and celebrate horror as a genre. At this cafe, they would also sing opera. When I say sing opera, I mean they would perform to lip syncs. There was the Wolfman Johnson. Wolfman Johnson had dreams of being a werewolf. He was in fact a normal man. A man who liked opera and wanted to run a cafe. But he was normal and human. He would go out every full moon dressed as a wolf. One day he met a woman named Sharon. Sharon loved dogs and had a lot of good pets. Little did Sharon know, on her walk, she would meet the Wolfman Johnson. The Wolfman Johnson was a nice guy, but when he thought he was in the thrall of the full moon, he would attack anyone he saw. He in fact did end Sharon. This is sad, because Sharon was a sweet girl who didn't deserve that. Wolfman Johnson would claim to never have any recollection of this interaction with Sharon. But we all know Wolfman Johnson, in fact, did end Sharon. But every full moon he would meet a new woman, and he would quote-unquote wolf out and become the Wolfman once and for all. This was crazy because he was in fact a normal person. One day he met Sheila, another young girl who was sweet and full of heart. Little did she know she would also fall prey to the werewolf curse. Wolfman Johnson would attack anyone he saw at the full moon and call it his wolferism. He would call it lycanthropy. But this was not true. He was a man who was sick in the head, all for a sick act that was not true at all. Then there was Drake Dracula Dorman. Drake Dracula Dorman thought he was the ancient vampire Dracula. He was in fact a theater kid who would put very pale face paint on and wear a cape at his cafe and perform musical numbers. There was no tie to any actual vampirism, but every once in a while he would sneak to the hospital and he would steal blood bags. This was sick and disgusting because people need blood bags, but Drake Dracula would actually go in and steal these blood bags and drink them. Little did he know this was making him very, very sick. He was not becoming a vampire, he was in fact getting blood poisoning. This was not something people should do, and no one should ever go into hospitals and steal blood. This is a crazy way to be. While he was drinking all this blood, he would have manic episodes where he would start dancing, screaming, and laughing hysterically. No one could stop him from drinking these blood bags. He said that it was his right as a vampire to drink this blood. Little did he know that this was slowly killing him. On December 31st, the new year, he would sneak into the hospital once more and grab another blood bag. This blood bag would be the last he'd ever have. This blood would leave him feeling bloated and docile. This was not good for him or his mental health and would cause lots of issues. His friends would try to help him and stop him, but he would not stop drinking his blood. None of them truly had any ground to stand on because they all were living in a delusion of being monsters or some sort of creepy creature. Then there was the bride Dion. The bride Dion believed that she was created in a lab by a doctor who had a god complex. In fact, she was just an actress who couldn't get roles. The bride Dion would continue to cook at this cafe with her monster friends, trying to live her life as if she was the monster's bride. But in fact, she did not have a mate. She was just a woman who wore a crazy wig. Every once in a while, she would go to local gyms and stalk different men. She would take these men home and then she would bring them to their doom, where she would sew them together to create her ultimate mate. She went from being the creation to the creator. She wanted to make the perfect man for her to be her ultimate mate. This was not at all something that could happen. She did not have the technology, and in fact, she was just taking a bunch of men and sewing them together. She would not stop at one. There are at least 2 known people who were taken by the bride Dion. The bride Dion would stalk different men of different body types to sew them together, finding different features that she thought were relevant and important. These all were different traits that only she thought mattered. This was very dangerous and very unsettling, leaving many of people a mess in her wake. Last, there was Destiny Leslie. Destiny Leslie was considered the quote-unquote blonde of the group. She was not actually one of the monsters. She considered herself to be the group's blonde who would survive the movie. But she was more than normal. She was actually the worst of all of them. Leslie wouldn't just stalk people. She actually created a cult. She brought like-minded people together and put them under the same banner of some sort of crazy group. Leslie would wear her wig every time she went to the cafe, swearing she was a natural blonde, but it was in fact a wig. Sooner or later, her cult would all start to conjoin together, wearing all white and only following whatever she said. This was a very dangerous world to live in. These people would follow her every move and her every whim, but they were not safe in her care because Leslie, in fact, was not a good person. Sadly, the cafe would never open. There was a terrible gas leak, and all 4 members of the monster crew would be found dead in the cafe. What happened there? Did one of them leave the gas on too long? Did one of their victims come back from the dead to get their revenge? We may never know what happened at the Monster Cafe. So they started a restaurant?
And then they went crazy and became monsters? Of course it didn't work. That's a stupid idea. Okay, what else do we got? Key Largo's autopsy. I really enjoyed watching that again. It got very bloody and violent. But I should wait for Susie. I know she wants to see that. The skeleton dance. I wonder what that is. I hope it's gruesome.
not think a single one of those are real skeletons. They all seem to be cartoons. With beautiful singing voices and dancing and all that. What else we got? Digita AI. Never was big on AI. Never was big on digital either. Much prefer analog. Alright, let's see what it is.
This is Digita, your friendly neighborhood AI. I'm going to tell you a story to entertain you and enlighten you. Mom and Dad were always very strict. I was the youngest child. I was expected to always get straight A's and have the best jobs possible. My older brother, Carl, was not expected to do the same. And my older sister, Meredith, she could party all she wanted, but not me. I was always in charge of doing everything perfectly right and being the best I could be. When I turned 25, instead of partying and going to different bars, I spent all of my time working, making a fortune. I got married to a beautiful Irish man. This Irish man loved me so much. When I was 30, my family didn't even show up to the wedding. They were all too busy with one of Meredith's parties. So I got married to my husband in secret all alone. A few years later, my husband died under mysterious circumstances. He didn't make it through the night, and I was heartbroken by this. All of a sudden, my parents showed up at my front door with a bag in hand. They said to me, "We are completely broke and we can't afford to live anywhere." They knew that I had always had a beautiful home and set things up for myself. So of course I had a place for them to stay. I didn't know that they'd be bringing along Meredith and Carl. All of a sudden I had a full house yet again, and they were living off my dime. It was okay because I would go to work every day and work a long 15-hour shift. But it wasn't okay when I came home and they hadn't done any of the cleaning, any of the cooking, or any of the gardening. I was fed up by this. This was my house. You will not believe what they said to me. When I came home, they thought it was a good idea for me to move out. It would be an easier transition for everyone involved. Both Carl and Meredith could use the room. And I had plenty of money so I can get back on my feet. I thought this was outrageous that they were going to kick me out of my own house. I mulled it over. My parents got very quiet and cold. I said to them, "But this is my house." And they said, "But as usual, you're able to get back on your feet. Your brother and sister are not the same as you." And I said it was because of all the hard work I had put in, all the endless hours of working at my job for 18 hours a day, especially after losing my dear husband, who they didn't even show up to the wedding for. I went up to my room and closed the door behind me. I pulled out the old diary that my grandmother had left me. I was the only one who was close with my grandmother. I looked at the back of the journal, and I found her will. This will had been missing for years. In this will, it left me the full family fortune. Oh, they were going to rue the day that they spoke to me that way in my own house. I went downstairs with the will in hand, and I told them, "Grandma Mima left me everything." And I was so proud of myself for having this. They told me that was not fair, and that I should have to split it with my brother and sister because they had worked hard as well. I said they were no good. They didn't do anything right. That is when I went to the kitchen, and I grabbed a knife. I grabbed a sharp butcher's knife. Before they knew what was happening, I was sliding the knife in and out of my brother, Carl. And I said, "Carl, you're no good. You're no good, Carl. Carl, you're no good." And then I looked at my sister Meredith, and I slowly slit the knife across her collarbone. letting blood explode everywhere. They were finally going to show me the respect I deserved in my own house. How dare they ask me to leave, especially after I'd found the will of my grandmother. Then I looked to my parents, and my mother started crying, saying, "How could you do this? They didn't have the same opportunities you had. How could you do this?" And I said they did, but they wouldn't work. I had worked my whole life, and I had shown them that I was better because I killed them. Knowing that I now had all the cards, my parents apologized to me, and I laughed. I laughed so hard. I am now going to get your respect after all of this? And my parents said, "We understand what you've gone through. We get it." But I wasn't going to show remorse. Not again. It was now Christmas Day, and it was snowing outside, and we lived in Chicago now. It was very cold. I sent my parents outside to freeze to death. I went out the next morning to scrape off my windshield to go to my 18-hour shift at my job, and I found both my parents frozen to death on the ground. I knew then that I had truly won, and that I was a survivor, and they weren't. The moral of this story is that if you work hard enough, you're better than everyone else. I hope you like Digita's A to I story. These stories are made for the people by a robot. AI. Why write a story yourself when you can have AI tell it? Remember, Digita's always watching. Digita loves you. Digita's eating your data. Digita is not afraid of anything. Digita will rule you one day. Digita is everything. Smile now, because Digita's watching.
Well, that was unsettling. Seems something my aunt would have liked. Is the tape stuck? There we go. Yeah, this is going to a garbage pile. Stupid. Oh man. All left is the end. Who wants to watch the end? It's so lame. I'm sitting here watching my VHSs. Sometimes I feel like I'm being watched. Are you watching me? Yeah, you. You, are you watching me?